Hello and welcome back to International Corner. It's the international break, but we are not resting, or we're not flying off to play some World Cup semi-final playoffs, whatever. We are here to give you something special. We have a guest today, but we have, of course, our own Richard Hole. Hello, Richard.
Hi, how you doing? You okay? Looking forward to today.
I'm very well. How are you? What's the international break? We know games on. Are you feeling a bit like nothing to do, nothing to say? No.
Well, no, it's not often I don't have anything to say, let's be honest. But no, I always miss the league games, of course. You know, it's always fun. But obviously, a lot going on with the international weekend, especially in Italy. But no, like you say, we're here and a special guest.
We have a special guest. You might know him as the Bambino, which means child, of course.
Yeah.
And he was one of the most promising products of the academy here at Inter. It's Davide Santon. Hello, Davide.
Hi,
How are
everybody.
you?
Hi, Davide.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm good. So, I'm not the bambino anymore.
No.
But
Bambinone.
I take the compliment.
Listen, Davide, you are in Newcastle, correct?
Yes, I'm in Newcastle, yeah.
Yeah, that's the tone of voice changed dramatically as you said that. Are you not liking it there? Did you prefer sunny Milano, sunny Roma?
Well, I have to be honest. It's a beautiful day today, so I'm not complaining.
It's the first one this year in the UK.
Yeah, Richard is in Preston. Do you know Preston? Have you ever been there?
In Preston?
Yeah.
No, I haven't been in Preston.
No, you're not missing anything. I think Newcastle is actually better. Yeah.
Okay.
So obviously you stayed there in Newcastle after your whole career. You decided to settle down in Newcastle. Is that correct?
Well, we moved to Newcastle just in August last year, and obviously my wife is from here, so we just wanted to move here for a bit just after the end of my career. But obviously, I don't know what's gonna happen in maybe 4 or 5 year time. I go back to Italy. I don't know yet, but at the moment we are here. Yeah, we are settled here.
Very good. Listen, Richard, do you remember Davide back then in a very, very important game that he played one time, and he had to face, at only 18 years of age, Mr. Sir Cristiano Ronaldo. Do you remember that game, Richard?
I remember most Inter games, yes, and I certainly do remember that. And you did a really, really good job, if I'm not mistaken.
Davide, how did you feel back then? I mean, only so young. What kept you calm, kept the nerves in control? Was it just, you being fearless? When you're young, you're not afraid of anything, or there's something else?
No, exactly like you said. You are 18. You are so young. So in your head, you don't have that pressure, of that kind of game, and you just play. Obviously, I was young. I knew who I had in front of me, and it was a tough game. But I remember I prepared that game for like 2 months, watching video, everything. And obviously, sometimes you can watch as many videos you want, but when you have an opponent like Cristiano Ronaldo, sometimes you just have to clap your hands and deal with it. But obviously, that game was amazing. I was feeling great, and yeah, that game I remember we drew 0-0, and was just like my start. It was just that game was. I will remember that game for the rest of my life. Was amazing.
I think most Inter fans remember that game.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, of course, I definitely remember that game, and the performance was outstanding. You said about being quite fearless at a young age. Is that something you see in maybe like Pio Esposito today? Do you think there's that element of fearlessness that you can relate to?
Well, yeah, of course. I think at least like through my career, the first couple of years were just like play and everything feels easier and everything is smooth. And when the years start to pass, you just start to feel like a little bit more of that pressure. You have to prove each year more and more and more. And obviously, Pio, like I don't know, is doing amazing thing. He's playing a different position than me
Of
because
course.
a striker sometimes I think is got it easier, because you can just play bad 90 minutes, you score at the last minutes, and you're the best player on the pitch. For a defender, is a little bit different, but obviously he's doing amazing. I think he's got a great future, and I'm always happy when like an Italian grown in Inter Academy is doing what he's doing. It's just amazing.
Listen, speaking of Pio Esposito and the personality, I've met Pio a few times, and he's one of the most polite young lads I've ever met. He's so polite and calm and always asking for permission to do anything. Were you like that back then?
Me, I was super polite, and I never changed. I, I I always been a guy, I grow up with nothing. I was just like a normal guy, and I got teach, of working hard and sacrifice, and always respect others. Doesn't matter where you are, who you are, and so I always been the same kind of guy, and always trying to be always trying to respect, other people. I always been like that. I never change in that way.
You also, when you started growing up at Enter Youth Academies, you sort of met and made friends with Mario Balotelli, who maybe had a different personality to yours.
No, but like Mario was a great guy. He was just a guy who, like, in public, he wanted to be something different, and he wanted some most of the time being on the newspaper, or I don't know, like just be the hero, of the day.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes we had some issue with his character, but I can promise you, I've been roommate with him for like 2 years, and when we were alone, he's a completely different person. He's a nice guy. You can actually have a conversation with him. You can speak like a normal person, but it's just, sometimes it's just Mario. He's like, he's never gonna change. When he's in public, he's just he has to be, the he has to create something. He has
Yeah, a bit
to
flamboyant, I would say.
yeah.
And talking of people you've played with, I mean, obviously our coach at the moment, Christian Kivi, you spent time with him. How are you finding? Obviously, his personality. Do you feel like that's translating into the coaching now? Can you see that coming through? And did you always think that maybe he would be a coach in the future?
Well, I played with Christian with him as well, like for 2 years, and he always had this leadership, inside of him. He was silent at time, but he was, I don't know, even if just with a look, if he was basically telling you, what you have to do. He was such a professional, and he always train and play hard. And me as a young player, I came in the squad and see Christian Kivi, like I always look up to him. And for me, as a new coach now of Inter, for me it's such an amazing job, because unfortunately in the last 2 years, losing two Champions League final, and take that place as a coach when you lose two Champions League final. I think is such a hard job, to because the player are fantastic. The talent is there, but I think what he did amazing is just he work with every single player's mind, And that's what the main thing, and that's what they're doing great this year. Obviously, they went out of the Championship, but you cannot reach the Champions League final every year. Obviously, now they're first in the league. They have a big chance of winning the league. And for me, for first year of Christian Kivu becoming the new head coach, for me is an amazing achievement. So what I can say about him is just like, for me, he's doing great. He's got a great personality, and he's a great guy. He's been a great friend to me as well. So I'm just happy for him.
Listen, back then when you played alongside him on the pitch, as he have told you off, because of course, you were a young gun, maybe trying to do your own things, and he didn't agree. Has he ever told you off or criticized?
Well, sometimes, we always been friends, but obviously when you play in the same position, is always some kind of competition going on. So, but obviously me as a young guy, at the time was completely different than now. At the time, if you were young, you just had to shut up and just and just keep going. You weren't allowed of saying any words. So it was a completely different era. And that was just hard work and just to train harder. We'll play on Sunday.
What were the characters? Because you had people like obviously Javier Zanetti, Mike Khan. When you came through at such a young age, did they act almost like as older brothers or uncles, or did they look out for you, or were they very disciplined?
Well, they were always up to to give me advices and with my life, but not just in football, even outside, especially outside football, because everybody knows at a young age you can lose your mind very easy in that world. So they were always the guys who said, David, make sure you have a good life, train well, sleep well, go home, rest, don't do crazy stuff, because you will have time to do that after your career. The career is short is short for us.
Yeah.
We think it's such a long career, but if you think you only play, if you're lucky, 15, 20 years, and then you have basically a second life to live after football. So in that 15 year, you have to try and do the best as you can. And it was when I played in those years in Inter, was such like player. I remember one of the first couple of training. You just go there. I said, where am I? I was playing with this kind of player on the PlayStation, with my friend and stuff like that. And then at one point you're just sitting they're sitting next to you, in the changing room, and was just like unbelievable. And then you get used to it after a little bit, but at the beginning was just like very, very strange.
Listen, of course, many years have gone by. Your careers has gone through some ups and downs with your injuries and so on. But now, if you look back, what is the phrase that still echoes in your head that maybe a coach said to you or a teammate said to you, something that still today has an effect on your life and made an impact?
I had many coach, but obviously the first one and who believed in me first was like Jose Mourinho. And I don't have any specific, to say like what anybody says to me, but I remember Mourinho one time after the Man United game, he said to me, David, like you played shit yesterday. And me said, what do you mean? Like I play shit? He said, yeah, you play completely shit. And then like he laughed, and like he walked away like nothing happened. But then there I realized how he was speaking to me. He was so proud of me, and he gave me a compliment, but telling me completely the opposite. And nothing. That is one thing I remember in my career. A coach was able, to joke with me, to express himself to me, and at the same time, sometimes he said to me, positive thing as well when he meant it. But that day, I remember, I think I just stayed in my head forever, basically, because I never had a coach telling me after an amazing game like that, oh, you played shit yesterday, and just like walked away. So he want. I think what he wanted to do is like see my reaction if I was a guy, who got upset or like who actually believed or like but I didn't. I didn't care. I was just going on my way, and that's it. Yeah.
And then he
That's
decided you again after that.
eh?
After you played so bad, as according to
Yes.
him, then he put you again in the lineup, correct?
Oh yes, he put me straight away again and again and again all that year. Like I
Yes.
played, I always played, and every game, oh, you played shit yesterday. It's okay. I can keep playing shit, and I play on Sundays, no problem.
With obviously, you came through the system, should we say? And when you see players now, like Di Marco, like we've mentioned about Esposito, do you feel that I think the fans always gravitate towards that because it's almost very special? Do you feel different, the response from the fans? Because obviously Inter will bring in players from all over, but when those players come through, do you feel that it's a little bit more special with the fans?
Yeah, well, like completely. You can have amazing player in the team, but when you have a player actually was grown in the Inter world, and because Di Marco, he had to go from one club to the other club. Then he wasn't always at his best, but then he believed in himself. And I remember when I was in the first team at Inter, Di Marco was like in Primavera, and used to come and training with us sometime. And he always had this crazy talent. It's just I think at the time he wasn't as strong with his mind, and that's why like he went team by team. Then he realized how good as a player he was, and he could put that on the pitch every single game. And then like we saw it's been like 4 or 5 years now. Like he's been for me one of the best left back in Europe. He's an amazing player. He's got that left foot. He's just like amazing. He can put the ball wherever he wants, and he deserves to be where he is and do what he does. He's got like for me, it's amazing in the position he's playing. Is I will always play. I will always play him if I was Thibaut as well.
And listen, you speaking about Di Marco and his path that you had, and Pio had a different path, and your path. What would be your suggestion or advice to those young players who come through and maybe start doing good things at a young age like yourself? What's the things that they have to do, and what they need to stay away from?
Well, they need to stay away from bad influence, because, like I said before, it's very easy to go in the wrong path. And what it is, just like like keep going, like just use every single second you have to train, to improve, because football career feels long but is very short. So you have to use every single training, every single, I don't know, anything, to trying to improve and trying to take the best of the best you can have, for the rest of your career.
Completely. A quick question for me is, I just thought then you mentioned about obviously Cristiano Ronaldo at the start, but
Yeah.
who was the player who you just really didn't like playing against? When you saw him on the team sheet, you thought, oh no. Was it Cristiano or was it someone else?
You know what? Of being like such like a like a tall guy. I was going in a difficult situation during the game with more like small player and faster. I remember one of the most difficult player I played against was like Theo Walcott when he played in Arsenal and when I played in Newcastle, or like Lennon in Tottenham. I had like I had against like Gareth Bale, which like I don't know, he had like a motorbike or something. He was not normal, that guy. And with Ronaldo, yeah, for me, it's always been difficult, But when I was fit at the beginning, which like I've been, obviously, I had my surgery only after 7 months when I started my career. But in that 6 7 months when I was fit, I wasn't afraid of anybody. I was so confident in my potential and what I could do, which like I just look at the opponent and they say, okay, we run, and who get there first will win. But I wasn't afraid of anything. I really wasn't. Then through the year, you go through injuries, stuff like that. So you have to adapt your body. You have to start working more with your mind, where your body cannot reach there anymore.
Mm.
And so you get up and downs, and you just have to deal with it, because there's nothing you can do. At the end, you can just say, I give my 100%. Maybe some time can be enough, and some time cannot be enough. But what's important, you try and do your best always.
Speaking of confidence and doing your best, now, of course, we have the international break, but then the league picks up again. We have a game against Roma. It's a tough moment for us. Tough because, of course, we were starting not long ago with 10 points, a 10-point margin against the runners-up AC Milan. Now, that margin has reduced to 6. But you've been yourself, I mean, the Inter you lived has been themselves in that situation where the margin sort of reduced and we've been overtaken. How do you go through that day by day, match day after match day?
I just think you have to take every single game like it's a final. What they have to try and do their best for. Is just like Scudetto is a Scudetto. Like is something always amazing. Obviously, me when I won the Scudetto with Inter, we won the Scudetto at the last game of the season. So you have to fight till the end and play like I said, every single game has to be a final. And the player can do it, because for me, like, Inter has such an amazing squad, amazing talent, amazing player. Obviously, some players been injured out of the squad, but that shouldn't matter. And that is a thing where, like, I think Kivu is very good on doing what he's doing, and I think he's been already speaking with players, and he will tell the player what they have to do. Especially. I'm not saying about talent, because they all have talent. Those kind of players. Is just what Key was to do is just work with their mind and try, so they can try, and push every single game till the end.
Maybe telling them, like you were told, you played really bad every single
Yeah,
time.
just tell everybody, you played shit yesterday. So like after, they played again like that. Yeah.
Listen, Davide, it's been a pleasure having you here. And shall we make a promise that if things take a turn for the best, yeah, you'll come and visit us at San Siro?
Yes, I
Soon
will.
enough.
I will come and visit. I will come and visit you in San Siro. I'm looking forward to it, and I will. I promise. I come maybe to celebrate the Scudetto.
Hopefully. Otherwise, if it doesn't go that way, we'll all have to come and see you in Newcastle. No.
Okay, no. If I hopefully we win the Scudetto. If we
Okay.
don't, I come in Milan anyway.
Okay. Thank you very much
Okay.
for joining us.
Thank you, Davide.
No
Thank you,
problem. It's
Davide.
been a pleasure. Thank you all.
Bye. Take care.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
day. Bye bye.
Richard, was so inspiring to hear those words for somebody who's been in probably everything that Inter went through, the ups, the downs, everything, the short-lived career as well. So if somebody can give that motivation, say, you've got to stick to it, to your talent, believe in yourself, it's him, I think. Because if you look at the calendar, it's tricky or not. What do you think?
Yeah, I think when it comes 2 points on that, because when you said about then that Davide was around serial winners at that point in his career, they really helped him to then push on to that next level. We've got a lot of experience in our squad as well. So even the fixtures, we've got obviously Roma coming up, we've got Como, the ones that you would look out for. I think that, within the squad, there's enough players with that mentality now to really switch on between now and the end of the season. And yeah, it's not the easiest run, but there's much to be positive about. And I think that, with that point difference, we can still really bring this home. It's just going to take, like, as Davide was saying, when you're at that level, it's 100% focus.
And also, let's not forget the international break. So we have 10 nerazzurri out on call. Some of them will play starting from tomorrow, with Italy playing in the semi-final of the playoff against Northern Ireland. So we have Pio Esposito himself, Davide Frattesi, Alessandro Bastoni, Federico Di Marco, and Nicola Barella, with the coach Rino Gattuso trying to seal a place to secure that spot in the World Cup this summer. Then we got Piotr Zieliński, Akan Çalhanoğlu as well, trying as well to do that same job. I mean, it does work, Kivu said this before, as a sort of reset. It gives you the opportunity to, for some, Marcus Thuram maybe, wear different clothes. Have you seen how they turn up?
Yeah.
To the training session there, honestly. Yes. I'm joking. And some, of course, to spend time with other people, to play different, so to switch off from the pressure that it is to go through the last 7-8 games of the season. So hopefully when we get back, we'll see some sort of new energies. That's what I'm trying to say. Because Roma is not easy. And the reason why I'm saying this is not because it's not just Roma itself. It's, bear in mind what Roma are trying to do. Roma are trying to get that spot in the Champions League, that they have got to really put a fight on, because the points are all very close to each other with Como as well. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, completely. The Italian media is all over the fact of the situation in Rome at the moment, and they would say that they are underperforming, especially with the result recently against Como. So the pressure is on them. Going back to the point about the international break, I do agree with that. I think that there is a very different pressure to international football. The focus these days has shifted than it would have been when I grew up. A lot of it was about the international game. But now that focus is really on the league or the Champions League and different areas. So I think that the players who've gone away will have different jobs to do with their national teams, but it does allow that reset and to come back and really and push on. As I said before, the fixtures are winnable, but it's going to just take 100% focus. And of course, I believe that the players we have got the ability to do that.
Of course,
but
it's just different now. If I think about Como, now Como have had 5 straight wins. Yeah. Mm-hmm. When we faced them back, it was deep winter. When we faced them at San Siro, I remember it was freezing cold, and 5 goals to none for us. Compared to what they are now, I mean, they are in a Champions League position. They're at the top level of the Serie A, and we have also got to face them in the Coppa Italia after 0-0 in the first leg of the semi-final. So we have 2 games, 12th of April, Serie A, and then on the 21st, the second leg of the Coppa Italia. I think on my mind, I've got Como more than anything.
Yeah, because they are, as you say, it's the informed team. Cesc Fabregas has done an exceptional job there, and it's everyone's how do you put it, team of the moment. Yeah. Really, everyone's looking towards that. But again, the mentality should be that we are top of the league for a reason. We have beaten them before. It is within our remit, or within our power to do so. We've got the squad depth to do that. So, they're in form, and it's, they will be looking to, the nearer they go to that Champions League spot, let's forget, the pressure will be on them. The pressure is on Roma right now as well. Yeah. So that's a good thing that they have pressure as well, because they can make mistakes and they are beatable, even if they are in good form.
In between these 2 fixtures against Como, so I'm talking about the league fixture and the Coppa Italia, we will face Cagliari at home. That should put us a bit in things into perspective. So with the Roma game, Como, and then Cagliari, which we should see the light or the light at the end of the tunnel. Totally. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. It's silly to look ahead, and Kivu would shout at me for saying this, because you have to take it game after game after game. But if you look at the main obstacles,
Yeah, I think that as well, Kivu would probably also say, and probably some of the senior players, that, you are right. It is every game at a time. And what you don't want to do as well is to focus so hard on Roma and Como that then you become lapsadaisical facing Cagliari. It's really important that every game goes in with full attention. And I'm sure they will do that. But let's not forget as well, the Milan, Napoli, anyone who's behind, they have tough games as well.
Of course.
So,
of course, I'm just thinking more of the mentality. Well, because what I was trying to ask Davide as well before is that it's one thing when you have a 10-point margin and you think, it's basically, I'm not saying impossible. It will be very, very hard for other teams to overtake us and steal the Scudetto from our hands. But it's one thing when you still have every game to take it as a final. You've got to have something extra. And I'm telling you, I do sports, and when I get to the last 2 kilometers of a 100 kilometers bike ride, even though I could probably go for another 20, I go, no, I can't do these last kilometers. I'm done. I've got to stop pedaling. It's very hard. I think that is one of the toughest things to do in sports, to just keep your head down and give that something extra. And I think that's what the reset and the mentality. I'm not saying the mentality is not good right now, but I think to do that extra, you have to really switch. There's a switch.
Yeah, I think it's every game, isn't it, as well, between, you look at the recent draw, it's done. And that's what I think really, when I look at a lot of professional sportsmen, and that's not just in football. I mean, if you use Roger Federer as an example, when he does it after every point, it's almost that point is gone, it's finished. So think about it, win that point. And that's kind of the mentality, I think, when you see teams, and the team that like Davide was in as well, like he said, they won the league on the last game of the season. I think it was 2-1 against Siena. And, that is right to the wire. We have a bit more of a buffer zone at the moment. So that, like you're saying, that mentality of, right, take it as the next game, all we need to think about, beat Roma. Then hopefully, that will kick into gear, and that sort of muscle memory of that a lot of these players have about winning titles kicks in, and it'll see us over the line, I hope.
I hope so too, and we will probably see each other again before the Roma game, before Easter. I won't leave you without seeing each other before Easter. You won't spend the nicest unless you talk to me. So enjoy the international break while you can, and thank you, Richard, for being with us.
Thank you. No, it's been brilliant, and great to speak to Davide as well.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.